We recognize lace as an open-work fabric created by the manipulation of thread. Or we could say it's a lot of holes held together with thread. There are many ways to make lace, by weaving, looping, knotting, or stitching variations. Tatting is traditionally considered a knotting technique. It is formed by a series of half hitches combined in various ways upon a fixed or a running line. The basic stitch, or knot, is the double stitch, a right and a left half hitch.
Hello, I'm Mildred Clark, and I'd like to share with you the tatting that you see here. This is traditional tatting done with rings and chains, and is the child's collar that's quite lovely. A bag and crochet to hold the ball of thread so that you can tat your chains easily. This is a copy of a bonnet from about 1850, and is also rings and chains. And then here is an edging called the hen and chicken's edging, done with one shuttle only. Another one shuttle project is the lovely handkerchief in the picture on the wall, done with one shuttle, and also 1865. Those pieces could well have been done with any of these old shuttles that are shown here. You might have had tools held on the chatelaine that's tatted with all rings, the necessary tools that would help you with your lace making. But here, a celluloid shuttle, and here a bone shuttle, both of them with plain ends, so you'd need a hook here. Then the German silver shuttle that has a built-on prong for making joining. And then an ivory shuttle that has a very special function because to fill the bobbin, this lovely little hand crank winder then will let you fill your bobbin so easily, and then take out the handle and proceed with your tatting. Then here is another one with a different special feature for filling the shuttle. And it is in two pieces now. You fill winding around and then taking the other half, put them together in the corresponding spots and turn. And so there it is, ready to go with a prong built on. Then the German, that one is a steel shuttle. And then this one that has another special filling feature. And the bobbin springs out, and you can wind it easily and then pop it back in. And it has the very fine hook at the end that lets you work with elegant, fine 150 thread. But what you need to have now, a shuttle that's available, could be the plastic one here with the built-on prong. It could be an elegant wood shuttle with plain ends, winds easily. Here is a plastic shuttle with an excellent grasp and with plain ends, winds easily. This one comes with its own hook. And then a special mother of pearl shuttle with a pin that comes along with some of the time. Then a very special springy plastic shuttle, plain ends, so you will need a hook. It does have a hook that you may buy, comes on a ring that you wear on your thumb so that you can make the joinings. And this has the advantage of holding any size thread, a whole ball full of the tatting thread and a considerable quantity of the heavy thread that you'll use. Here, Chalegli shell shuttle, and then a hook that could be used, an ordinary crochet hook. And then here is a plastic shuttle with a separate bobbin and a special feature at the end for holding it to fill, to wind, and a hook on the end. And then this one that's an easy-to-use shuttle available with this hook built on the end as well. The bobbin comes out for easy fill. And then this one has open ends, plastic one that winds easily and with a prong built on the end. And then a very special shuttle made of gold mother of pearl with a beautiful pattern engraved on, and inside it says Mom, and then my son's initials and the year that he made it for me. So you'll enjoy tatting with whatever of the tools, I'm sure. here are the threads that are available now, and you will need 2 balls of thread, both of the same kind, one of white and one of your choice of color. This is a large thread, size 5, and you'll need a heavy thread, or perhaps the size 10. It's a little finer. Then the best threads for tatting really are a firm, strong, smooth thread, a 6-cord hard twist thread. And then the traditional tatting thread is that same kind of thread in the 70 or 80 category. But those are threads that are possible. Some tools that later I'll show you might be useful in your work, what they would help you with. You will have learned how to do the basic stitch, and you will have learned how to read the patterns. So then you will be able to locate your choice of any or all of these wonderful books with hundreds of patterns that you'll find challenging and very interesting and compelling for you, so that you can just tat away. I think we're ready now to tat. Now you have your materials ready. You have your thread, that's a heavy thread, and you have your shuttle. And if you're left-handed, you're at an advantage because your left hand is going to be doing more things even than your right, a little more intricate motion. And so with that in mind, we're going to use the same directions for right-handed and left-handed people. And because it's easier to learn the shuttle motion, before you have any thread on the shuttle, we're going to start with an empty shuttle. And then with the thread for beginning, this will be the real placement of the thread, even though the shuttle is empty. This is the way you're going to use your color thread that will be what you see in the chain you're going to learn to make. So you will be taking the color thread at the end of it, and with your left hand spread, you're going to wrap that thread around your little finger, going fully around it, and then under your ring finger. And here a ring does help. It will control that thread much more easily. And then under your middle finger and on the back of your index finger, pull the thread along as you need so that you can then get it in a firm grasp or pinch between your thumb and middle finger. And now I'm going to do that again so that you can see what I did and be able to do that yourself. Then you want to be sure that your thread is comfortable. However you're working with it, your fingers can't be restricted by the thread tension, and yet you have to have that under control. The whole work of tatting is alternating the tension in the thread, having it tight and loose, or taut and slack. And so then this is what you're going to be working with, this portion right here, and it is held tightly. The little finger can bend down and hold the thread so that it does not come from the ball of thread that I have held here in my lap in a container. And so that will restrict that thread flow. Some of the time I'm going to relax my hand, but that comes later. For now, your fingers are holding the thread firmly all along, and this is tight. And then grasp the shuttle in your right hand, and you hold it on the sides. You hold it here on the sides of the blades of the shuttle, between the middle and the end, and firmly but gently. And then there's shuttle motion, 2 motions that you make. Because the basic stitch, as you know now, has a first and second half, or a right and left half hitch. So here the shuttle then slides under and it rubs on that thread and it slides right under your finger, and you still hold the shuttle past the end, and then bring it back so it rubs on the lower blade and back. That's the first motion. Now I'll do that again. That's the first motion for the first half. When you have thread on the shuttle, it just tangles when you're beginning, and it confuses. So that makes it easy. The second half is just as easy, and you do the same thing in reverse. You put the shuttle against that taut thread and slide it over and then around the end and then back over the top. I'll do that again. Over the top, down under. It's easy to remember which is the way if you find that a little crutch helps you. If you think of perhaps a puppy or a young child who first has to do the first half, go under a fence. And then the second half is they're big enough, they can go over the fence. So the first half of the motion is always under, the second half is always over that taut thread. So practice that. It won't take long, it's easy, but it's so much easier now to do that with the shuttle and the thread as they are. So a few tries with that, and we'll be ready to go ahead. Now you've practiced the shuttle motion, so we're ready to fill the shuttle. And here I'm using, and you're going to be using, a heavy thread like this DMC Sibelia number 5, a big heavy thread. And the shuttle is one that is plain-ended and has a central post with a hole in the middle intended for you to slip that thread through and then tie a knot and then wind around. I find it's easier to make a slip knot, and so I take the thread and make my slip knot. I can pull and adjust, and then I can slide it on the shuttle like that, and then pull it to tighten it down. And I can keep pulling until I adjust it exactly where I want it, because this long thread can just be left where it is, or I can pull it and shorten it. And eventually, when I use up all of the thread on the shuttle, I can just pull and take it off. And then I'm going to just wind around until I have the shuttle filled about as full as I want it. And it's not it's quick and easy, really, because it is this springy end shuttle. You want to fill it so that the shuttle is full but not extending over the edge, because the shuttle can be too full and it won't slide easily when you make that motion over the thread. So that, if you choose a shuttle of this nature, whether it's the large one or whether you choose a small one and only wind a yard or two on it, that's what you're going to do. You might also choose this shuttle. It's a nice plastic shuttle, and I have on here this same heavy number 5 thread. You can get heavier thread, but you have to look at the shuttle and see here, for instance, you have to match the shuttle size opening to the size thread that you have, because you see, I could easily lose my shuttle and it would all unwind, and I'd have to repeat this many times. So this is, the shuttle and the thread just simply don't work together. I need a shuttle with ends that are closer together, and they come in varying openings, so you'll have to check your shuttle. It may be that you would choose this kind of shuttle. And here it's easy to pop the shuttle out, pop the bobbin out of the shuttle. Once in a while it's a difficult thing to pop it out. And so if you need some help on it, because once in a while you drop these, or the youngsters get into it and step on it, whatever, and you have to push the shuttle, spreading the shuttle case, push the bobbin out, and then you can wind in the same manner as I did the blue one, and just fill the bobbin, and then replace it in the shuttle case here. There. Now I put that thread in very carefully in the direction that I want it, because the direction the thread unwinds is important when you have shuttles like these with a built-on prong or hook. It has to be held in the same manner as I showed you before, but this with the hook on it, the hook has to, with the prong on it or the hook, has to point to your own left, and the thread has to descend in a clockwise manner from the bottom. The same thing is true here in this one, with the hook pointing downward, and you have to then be able to make the thread come easily. And again, if someone has stepped on that shuttle, for instance, and no matter how you tug, that thread isn't going to come, you're not going to be able to tat. And so what you have to do then is use something firm, a pencil, a hook, whatever, possibly even a pair of pliers, and use the handle and spread that open enough that then the pressure holding the bobbin in will be eased. And then in the same process, it's possible that you could make it too loose. And in that case, if it would come much too freely, then tighten it up, just the same thing in reverse, and just pinch it back to where it suits you, the way the thread comes from the shuttle case. This one, it's possible that it might be a little large for the picots that you make, because when you make lace in fine thread, you'll have smaller picots, and then of course this heavy thread you'll have larger ones. The prong then, or the hook size, has to relate to that thread size and the shuttle size, and it may be that you might want to reduce the size of the prong where you can in the plastic by sanding it. An emery board works beautifully and takes care of any roughness or any size change that you might wish to control. So that is what you do to fill your shuttle, and to repeat holding the shuttle so that the thread descends clockwise out of the bottom, and the prong or the hook, with the hook pointing downward, extend to your own left, and then wound so that the shuttle is full, but that the thread does not extend beyond, or that the bobbin is full enough that it doesn't extend beyond the shuttle. Now it's time to fill your shuttle, and remember, fill it with white thread, and then we'll be ready to start. Now we're ready to start with the tatting, the basic double stitch. And we have the shuttle wound with the white thread. This is the heavy number 5 thread. And I've taken the end of the color thread and the white thread. I'm going to tie an overhand knot here at that 9-inch approximate point, about so far from the end because now we're going to wind that color thread around our hands, just as we did before. And so, holding the knot then, instead of the thread end, we're going to we're going to let the shuttle dangle, and we're going to wrap the color thread around the little finger as we did before, up, around, and through, back behind the ring finger, behind the ring if you have one on, and under the middle finger, back over the index finger, and put that knot in between your thumb and your middle finger. And again, make that thread comfortable so that you can control it with the little finger here, holding it down so you won't get more color thread than you want at this time. And I need a little more space here, a little more there. Now that's comfortable for me. So now I have the color thread arranged as we did before when we practiced that shuttle thrust. Now it's time for the shuttle to come into play, the shuttle thread. And remember, you have the thread coming out the bottom of the shuttle clockwise and holding the thread in the shuttle so that it's tipped flat this way. Then roll the shuttle around your hand. I'll do that again. Roll the shuttle around your hand so that you catch that thread up over the shuttle. And now comes the thrust that we did. The little puppy or the young one going under, rubbing against the taut color thread over around the end and back through. And now you see the color thread is taut, and I have here a white loop from the shuttle around the taut color thread. That's the loop. And now by changing tension, I'm going to do what's the second part of this three-part portion of the stitch. I've relaxed the color thread. I'm tightening the white thread. And now you see I have a blue loop. And that is the transfer of the stitch. And now I'm going to position the stitch. I'm going to raise my index finger and slide that right along under my thumb. And my thumb and middle finger just kind of eat up each half of the stitch and keep grasping it as it forms. And now, by positioning the stitch, I have made the blue thread taut. So I'm ready to do the second half, the second thrust of the shuttle. This time, I don't wrap my hand because that loop is dangling down. And so the shuttle is over and under and right through that loop. And now I have made the second loop, this time over and under. And I'm going to do the second portion. I'm going to transfer the loop and make it be blue. I relaxed the thread in blue. I tightened the white. And so I have a blue loop. And now to position that by lifting the index finger, and right there, that is the basic double stitch. That's what tatting's about right there. So let me do that again. Catch the thread around my little finger, and it's up over the shuttle. So here you see then the loop up over the shuttle. Under, 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 slide right between your fingers and the shuttle, around the end, back over, and the loop slides off your hand, and there it is, a white loop. Relax the blue, tighten the white, and now it's a blue loop. And slide it in place. Second half, you do not wrap, you just let the thread make a loop below. Over, rubbing, under, bring it back, rubbing. There's the loop in white. Now the loop in color, and slide it in position. This is what I have done so that you can see here the taut thread, the color thread, the white thread from the shuttle goes under, out, around, and then over and under itself, under the white shuttle thread. And that's forming the loop, step one. Then here I have changed the tension, loosened the color thread, and I have made the white thread taut, and that made the loop change from white to green. And then here is the first, here is the loop in green, and I have to position it, and I'm sliding it over to where the knot is. That's the first half. The second half of the stitch then is very much the same as the first. The color thread is taut, and the shuttle thread is where it goes over, around, and under. And here it's over itself and forms its white loop. And then the second portion, where I'm going to transfer the loop, I relax the color thread and I tighten the shuttle thread so that my loop then changes from white and becomes green. That's the important part of the stitch that has to be done correctly. Then, ready for the third portion of the stitch, where we're going to position the loop against the first half of the stitch. And it's slid then into a closeness against that first stitch, so that you see here then, you see the entire double stitch. That's the basis of your tatting. And you have to know that. You have to see that the white thread underneath is covered by that color thread. If it isn't, you have not tatted. So there you are. Let me show it to you again here in the thread so that you can see what I'm about to do. I'm going to take the knot, and this time it has a stitch on it. I'm going to, you do it with me. I'm comfortable now with the thread around that hand. This. I'm going under and over. White loop, change the tension, a blue loop, and position it. And now over, and under, change the tension, and now color loop, and in position. And if you look, you can see, if I try to spread the stitches, you know there's white underneath, but when they're in position, the white core thread underneath doesn't show. And so that's the basic double stitch. Let me show it to you then in a chart so you'll know what we've done. And you can see here these steps in making this stitch. The first half has 3 steps, but the approach is from underneath that taut thread. And then the second half, the approach is from over in the formation of the first step. The second step, the transfer. The third step, the positioning of the loop. The same in each of the portions of the stitch. And that's it. That's the whole double stitch. This is what tatting is. And you have to transfer that loop after you form it in the stitch. So that is the basic double stitch. And then in continuing that, let me show you again. This time you do it with me. We'll make the double stitch. Around, back and forth. You can see the positioning here. Repeat it again. And what I'm going to show you now is a picot, because there are four portions of tatting that you have to know before you can really tat. You have the double stitch, and now I'm going to show you further, but I'll begin by making the double stitch again. And now here is the difference. Before, when I positioned the stitch, I slid it against the last stitch. Here, I'm leaving a space between, and I'm pinching that new half of the stitch I'm making away from the other one. Now I'll do the second half. And there is my new double stitch. And you see, I have left a space between the two. And now when I slide that stitch into position, I have made a protruding loop. That's my picot. And that's the second part. That's for decoration, for the lacy look, and it's for construction so that you can join one portion of tatting into another portion. So here now we go again, and you follow through with me. You tell me what I'm about to do. Now, more double stitches until you're comfortable with them. And if by chance, well, it's hard to make a mistake when you want to, but for instance, if I pull this down like this, I brought the loop down and I did not transfer it. And it's just obvious that the color thread is rising up and the white thread shows. There's a white loop on top. And so do just as I did briefly a moment back. Back that up. And then adjust your tension again and slide it in place. And then go ahead. Now I'm making another picot here. It's following 3 stitches. And I'd like to have you go ahead practicing making your stitches, 3 stitches and a picot, 3 stitches and a picot until you feel comfortable with this and until your work looks just the way you want it. Uniform stitches, uniform picots goes together. And in your 3 stitches and 1 picot. You've practiced now, you've made a lovely chain, you have your stitches close together, and we're ready to go ahead then to make the ring. And to do that, we have to get only the white thread out. We're going to reverse the work and let the blue thread go down. So reversing, turning it from top to bottom, and then holding the white thread and the last stitch firmly between our thumb and forefinger, carry the white thread over the backs of our fingers, around under the little finger, and back up into the thumb and forefinger, and arrange that thread so that the white thread touches against the last of your color thread. And so that is the arrangement then for making a ring in the tatting. That is our next step, because we've made the chain, we've made the picot, and now for the ring. The stitch is done in just the same way as we have before. The shuttle thread emerges clockwise below, around the back of your hand, the loop over, and the shuttle goes under, back, and through. And you see now, it's all white. So you have to know what you're looking at. And I have a white loop on the shuttle thread, and I'm going to relax the thread in my left hand and make the loop now be in the other position where it used to be color, it's white. Now I'm positioning it tight against the color thread. And holding that, do the second half. And again, know what you're doing because you have to make that stitch change over, just like you did before when you could easily see it. And there is my first double stitch. Now I'm going to make 3 more because this is going to be a ring that's made of 3 double stitches, 1, 2, and 3, and my fingers are getting a little cramped now. And what I need to do is get more thread. I can do that by pulling with my ring finger and my little finger downward so that I make this thread move. Do you see? That is my running line. And then the stitches are correct when I can slide them. Now, the chain that you did before was on a fixed line. That line didn't slide, but you still had to cover up the white and just see your color. And now you can easily do that here in making the stitches be on a line, but this time it's a running line. I have 3 stitches. I'm ready now to make another group of 3 stitches because I'm going to make a picot here. And just as you practiced in your chain, make a picot, and that then, the stitch that made the picot, is the first one in the next group of stitches. The ring is 3 stitches, picot, 3 stitches, picot, 3 stitches, picot, 3 stitches, and close. So here we're starting the second group of 3. There's the second one. There is the third one. I need more thread. I'm starting the third group. Oops. That happens too. Now I have just change the alignment of that last stitch so I can back this up and then slide it into position again. And look, it slides, so I'm still fine. But I need more thread now for the second half of that stitch. There. And the third stitch in that group, there's the picot. I need more thread. If you can't make your little finger and your ring finger work, grasp that thread and pull it so that you get enough thread to be comfortable. And here is my last double stitch. And look at it. Look and see, because you want to be sure, at this point, you want to be sure, have I got what I think I have? And there is 1, 2, 3, picot, 1, 2, 3, picot, 1, 2, 3, picot, 1, 2, 3. It's all there. So now I'm ready to close my ring. And what I'm going to do is just move that running line. I'm going to pull it, and it's going to tighten around my fingers. And so I'll withdraw a finger and another finger, but I'm still holding the last stitch that I made. And gradually, just pull and pull and pull. Finally, it's starting to shape up into a ring, and I'll begin to close it, bringing it over toward the first stitch so that it kind of closes in a circular motion. And there is my first ring. All set. Ready, and that's a wonderful step to be in. Ready now to go ahead and reverse the work again, because now we're going to make a chain underneath as we did before. And so I'm reversing the work, the ring is pointing downward, and now the old chain that I had made before is upward. And grasping where the ring and the chain go together. I'll use that as I had used the knot before, and again, the color around my fingers as it was. Take the end of the ring, the end of the chain, and hold them firmly. One reason that I like that 9-inch lead thread is because I can make the long thread go over my hand here instead of hanging down in this portion, so it doesn't get in the way. And now the chain uses less shuttle thread, so it's comfortable to shorten that length of thread that I'm using. And now the chain pattern is, as we did before, 3 double stitches, the first one, and here you want to pull that up nice and close, still touching even the blue of the chain before, and then hold that first half stitch and your second half. There's the first one. You can guess it's going to be a picot now because I've done 3 stitches. And there I have my chain, 3, picot 3, and they're slid together firmly enough that you can't see the white that's underneath. So I'm going to reverse the work again, take the color thread off my fingers and let the color thread dangle, and holding between my thumb and forefinger the last stitch of the chain, I'll resume the ring and make the second ring. And it needs a little more thread then, because you're wrapping around with the same thread a circle around your fingers. The first half of the stitch, one color, so you have to be very sure that you made the transfer, and it slides over so that it's positioned against the blue of the chain. Second half of the stitch, and it's positioned right there. And now I have 3 stitches in my second ring. And before, remember, picots are for decoration, for ornament and laciness, and therefore function. They connect work portions, one ring to another. And so I'm going to join my second ring to my first ring now. And I must place I've adjusted the thread so that it means I can work with those 3 stitches and work that picot over against the thread that will be my next stitch. And then with a hook, since my shuttle has none built on, I'll use a hook and go right through that last picot. I'm going to grasp that thread underneath with the hook, fish it back through that picot, and watch your thread, because I'm going to stop that process with the thread next to my last stitch, and I'm pulling the thread from up over my fingers until it's large enough that I can slide that shuttle through from the back, through that loop. And see, I'm still holding the last stitch of the ring, and I'm holding the first ring. And here's my loop that slides, that I've pulled up. Run the shuttle through that, all the way through. And then I'm going to retract that loop that I fished up with the crochet hook. And now my stitch that I've just brought through has to be adjusted so that it is in line with the first 3 stitches. And then, does my work slide? Yes, it slides. If it doesn't, you have to back it up and start it over. You can do that by just taking the hook, inserting it through the picot, fishing the thread through, and put the shuttle back in this the same way that it came through, so this way it's going back. And there it is, where I'd started. No problem, I can do it over again. So I'm positioning the picot over the thread. I'm putting the crochet hook through the picot, getting that loop up, and I'm holding the last stitch of the first ring and the last stitch of the current ring and the first ring, and then I'm going to slide that shuttle through and retract the loop, and I have to make that align with the others so that that portion is equal with the others. Then I'll start my next stitch, and when I have that first half of the double stitch, I recheck and slide. And it slides because sometimes you can misalign that joining stitch when you put in your first half of your double stitch. So now it slides, now I'm in business again, and there's the second half of that first stitch. That's a joining. Now you've done a ring, you've done a chain, you've done a picot, and you've done a joining. Those are the 4 things, and that is what you have to know to be able to tat. So now we'll finish the second ring, and then you can see it even more clearly. That finishes the third group, 1 more picot, and then 3 stitches. There's the first one. There, I need more thread. There is the second one, and there is the third one. What do I have? 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and a join instead of a picot for the first ring. The join is the same as far as spacing and counting is concerned. Then the next 3 stitches, the picot, 3 stitches, the picot, 3 stitches, everything's there, and this thread slides, and I'm closing it around my fingers, around, and then when I get down about here, I begin to cross it over so it's closing in a more circular manner. And that's what you're to do. That's the basic ring, chain, and ring, and the 3 count. 3 stitches, picot, 3 stitches in the chain, and in the rings, it's the same. There's if you look at it as though it were a clock, there's a 9 o'clock, a 12 o'clock, and a 3 o'clock picot. And it's easy to remember that way. So then when you finish your second ring, remember then you're going to start color again, reverse your work, and align your thread. Start here, then, and your first stitch snuggles right up against the color of your last chain and the base of your ring so that your work is close and just as fine as you can make it. Then your second half of the stitch, and then finish your chain. I've just finished my third ring, and in my haste, I didn't count well, and I've made a mistake. It's possible you'll make a mistake too. And in order to correct that, I have to take the ring out. See, I have 4 stitches here instead of 3. And so I have to make the ring big enough to get my fingers into it again. And to do that, I'm going to grasp the stitch just before the last picot, right at the picot, and hold that firm. See, my thumbnail's right down in there on that core thread. I'll take a hold of the last 4 stitches, my wrong one and 3 correct ones, and I'll slide those last stitches toward my shuttle, away from where I'm holding it so firmly. And now I have the same space on the core thread as I have in the picot up over it. I still can't get my fingers in there, so I'm going to move over to the next picot, the 12 o'clock picot, and I'll do the same thing. I'll insert my thumbnail in there, get a good grasp on that last stitch before the picot, and take the 3 stitches from and slide them over toward the 3 o'clock picot. I've enlarged the ring that much, and see, I've closed this now. I'll go back over here and do it again at the 3 o'clock picot and get a little more space in there. Now I have the ring enlarged enough that I can grasp the thread down here at my very first stitch, and I can pull it from, see, this is that a running line, and I'm going to just run that line back through, and it's closing the places where I'd spread it open, but the ring is getting larger, and see, it's taking the thread from the shuttle and drawing it back through. And now I have my ring so that I can get my fingers in there. I need a little more space. And now to back up this stitch, now I can do it now. So I'm going to grasp the last stitch and just loosen it, sliding it along, and then slip that shuttle through that portion. Half of the stitch now is out, and same thing, I'll loosen that stitch until I have it opened enough that I can slide that shuttle through. And now I'll count more carefully, and I see that I have 3 stitches in that, and I have a correct ring, 3, picot 3, picot 3. And total of your 3 picots, 12 stitches. I'll close the ring this time with the correct count. Now when you take a ring apart, when you open it in that manner, your hands are on the thread so much. You have this lace technique has more hands touching thread more constantly. And whether you realize it or not, even though you think your hands are clean, they're not all that clean, and you'll make your thread grimy. It's very useful when you have tatting to use some of these little washette packets so that you can keep yourself in readiness to do something like this, or just to keep your work really clean as you go. It helps so much not to have to try to clean it afterward. Then, now my ring is correct, and I'm going to go ahead with the chain. I needed to shorten that thread a little. I'll wind the thread as I have all along, the color thread for the chain, and here's my next chain, carefully counting. The stitch snuggled close against the early color. There. And now, what might happen for you after you've made this edging away is that you might run out of shuttle thread. I haven't really, but I'm going to so that you can see how to do it. And go ahead and make your new joining and not have any thread ends left. You'll take care of them so easily. It works at the end of a chain. And the one that you run out of is the shuttle thread. So you're going to have to refill it. It helps to have 2 balls of the thread that is your shuttle thread color. And so I'm going to cut again about 9 inches. That length seems good. That is where you run out of thread, and I made myself run out of thread there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to make my next ring, and you will have filled your shuttle. I'm going to go ahead now and start with a 9-inch dangle of my new thread and put it against the last of the chain thread in the color. And I'm going to wrap this new thread around my hand, same as I would for any new ring. And here is the old thread that I ran out of that is just waiting for me to lay alongside this new filled shuttle. And I want to make that thread go against it closely. The trick is to make a new core thread. I'll put my finger on it to hold it there. And I have 1 thread around my hand, the new thread. And so here's the first stitch, holding that old tail of thread alongside between the hand and the shuttle, and make my stitch. I'll be sure I hold that. See, the loop is transferred and slides along around the 2 threads. Then the second half goes over and hold that end. You see the 2 threads that are there inside. And I've made 1 stitch. I'd have to keep these threads equal after each stitch because I am not using up the thread of the old tail, but I am using thread for the new stitch to make that whole stitch. Now I'll do it again, around and under. I lost the thread end, but I could catch it, pull it through, and I'll slide it in there. Do the second half. And then the third half can continue right along. Now, some people like to stop this after 3 stitches. I think it's nicer if you can do the whole ring that way, because you have a uniform ring. There, now it's behaving. I'm ready for my joining. I have 3 stitches at the end, not 4, so I'll close this ring. And I'm going to cut that thread off then that I have buried within the ring. And I'll make my chain. See where it is? It's coming out of the ring. And that part is taken care of. Now with the work reversed, I'm going to work in the other thread end. This will be the new thread end. So I'll make my stitch. There's the loop. I've transferred the loop. And now I'll slide this tag thread end in alongside the thread, holding them parallel. Slide that stitch into position. Then the second half of the stitch. Transfer the stitch and then slide the thread end in that loop right there. And it's covered very nicely then with the stitch, just as though it were one thread in there. I have the loop made and transferred, and there I am ready again to slide the tag end of the thread in. Slide it into position. The second half of the stitch, the loop transferred, and the thread comes in, always in the same direction as the shuttle thread in the stitch, so it follows right along. There's 2 stitches. And here's half. Stitch transferred, and then in from under. There. Now, since on the ring I stopped after the first group, I'm going to make my picot and just let that thread remain and trim it. When it's a finer thread, you'll find that it's easier, and you can carry that through to the end of the chain or to the end of the ring. So here is my next stitch, following the picot. 1, 2, 3. And now I'm ready to trim that end and reverse my work and go ahead with a new fully filled shuttle. So now it's time. Practice until you feel comfortable, till your stitches are uniform. But this is just for practice and to become comfortable in what you're doing. But you have the 4 basic things: the ring and the chain, the picot, and the joining. So now it's time to tat. Now, before you can go ahead with your project, let's see what we've done here, because you'll need to read directions from a pattern and see what we've been doing. It's been make a ring of 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, close the ring, reverse the work. That's one way of writing a pattern, and you'll find other methods. This one, for example, a ring of 3 double stitches, a picot, 3 double stitches, a picot, 3 double stitches, a picot, 3 double stitches, close the ring. The abbreviations, and those you'll find in the list of abbreviations. But then here's another way of writing that same thing. A ring of 3 double stitches, 3 picots separated by 3 double stitches, 3 double stitches, close the ring, reverse the work. It's the same thing. And then this 4th method is even more brief, and the numbers are the stitches in the double stitch, the count of the stitch. The dash is the picot. So there is the ring of 3 double stitches, the picot, 3 double stitches, the picot, 3 double stitches, the picot, and 3 double stitches. And then here is this very graphic illustration of a ring with picots. And here's the base of the ring, the 9 o'clock, the 12 o'clock, the 3 o'clock, and 3 stitches between each. I often use these last 2 in combination, depending upon the pattern. And this then carries further what we've been doing in the manner that I would be doing it for myself. The ring is written briefly, 3 stitches, picot, 3 stitches, picot, 3, and then finishing with reverse the work. Then the chain is added, 3, picot, 3, reverse the work. And then the next ring, that second ring where we made the joining, is a ring of 3 stitches, and the plus is the join, and then on as it was before. And if your pattern directions say those first several examples that are very wordy, or you're not going to want to have your directions in the lengthy manner in front of you, it helps if you can draw your own picture. And this is just what we've been doing. And here it tells the whole story. Here, then, is the ring with the 3, picot 3, picot 3, picot 3, and then here's the chain, the same count, and then the second ring, and here shows the joining into the picot, and ever after, then it follows along. You can tell the first ring because it has all of the picots, and then as you go on, you can tell which is the joining very easily, and that you keep right on with your work. I've included this pattern in the pattern diagrams, so you can refer to it and perhaps use it for your first project. And you might like to put that edging on a towel, something of this nature, using that heavy thread so that you know what you're doing. If it doesn't come out of the length longer or shorter, remember it's easier to crowd your work a little bit rather than stretch the lace. It will lie much more happily and pleasantly for you. And then the ends of the thread can be tacked against the tatting itself or run into the hem of the towel after you have sewn it together. Enjoy tatting your first project. I hope you've enjoyed making your first project. If you look with me at the insert with the pattern diagrams, you'll see directions for more projects, and I have them here for you. They're designed with several things in mind because the size of the thread goes down progressively and the pattern is a little more effort, a little more detail. For instance, this one is using a size 10 thread, and you'll find it, I think, a little easier to work with. But you'll have to look a little more, and you follow along the chain without a picot, and the one ring is with a smooth top and the chain, so you're reversing your work just as you did in the first edging. Then to have you see this more simple edging in a way, but this is the project to carry, because once you work with tatting, you'll find it so handy to do a few minutes of while you're waiting. And my shuttle's tucked inside here, and you can have hours of work, hours of pleasure in working, getting 5 minutes at a time, and work it here or work it there if you carry it with you in your purse. And it's a simple one shuttle edging. It is 3 picot and 2 picot, 2 picot, 3 in the pattern. And that's the tatting thread, that's the fine thread. I think you'll enjoy that one thoroughly. The next one is the medallion. And here it's again the same simple thing of rings and chains. And they are joined so that the pattern shows you the first ring with all of the picots, and you go on the last ring, just has a top picot and a join on each side. And then your thread ending to tie the threads together and tie them at the end for a hanging loop. The next one is a marker, and this again is in tatting thread. It's the fine thread. And you make a double pass starting at the end with the first ring that's large and 1 picot, then your chain and your ring that joins into that picot, and all along it's the same basic ring and chain. Down here you make an end picot, and then all the rest of your rings to make the return trip make 2 joinings instead of 1. And you have to fold the top of the work back out of your way each time, but that gets shorter as you progress down to the end. So your last ring joins into that very first picot after it has joined the one just before it, and it has a free last picot. And that's a fun one to do. If you did that in a thread that was heavy, it would spoil the book that you put it in. So some patterns call for, look at your project and see what are you going to do with it before you actually begin and pick out your size of thread and type of thread. Then another edging that's fun to do and that's traditional, but you have to reverse your work and calculate the space in between the rows, because it's the one shuttle. There's no chain involved. And that particular one, the spacing is easy, really, because it's about the same size as the stitches in each of the segments. let's take a moment to review reading the pattern. You begin and work from the left to the right as you proceed through the pattern, beginning with the first ring. The numbers mean the number of double stitches you'll make. So here it is 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, close your ring. You've finished a unit. You're going to reverse the work from top to bottom, and you'll start the chain. And here, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches. You've finished that unit. Reverse your work again, and then the next ring, the same as the first, 3 double stitches, but the line here means join to the picot, opposite, and then 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, close your ring. You finish the unit, reverse your work, and begin your chain again, continuing onward in the direction to the right on your pattern. Now, let's look at the alternate edging. And look, see, I think you can do it. Look and see for a moment. I think you're right. It was 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, and groups of 2s in between each of the picots to the last one here. 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches. You've finished the unit. When you close the ring, you're going to reverse the work, and here is the chain. There are no picots in this one. It's just 6 double stitches. You finish the unit, reverse the work, and begin a ring. And it's 3 double stitches, join to that last picot, opposite, and then a smooth top here, 6 double stitches, a picot, 3 double stitches, close the ring, reverse the work, and continue. And now you see the chain is a curve. That indicates a chain because this is also called an arch or an arc. In the older books, you'll see it referred to in that way. We look down here and see the edging to carry, and here the line is straight. The edging is that neat little packet with the shuttle inside, and you want one shuttle only, no ball of thread, for easy carrying. So here this is simply a straight line of thread. It is not a chain. And you'll begin again reading from the left and work to the right. And this one, I'm sure you know, is 3 double stitches in the picot, 2 double stitches picot, 2 double stitches picot, 2 double stitches picot, and 3 double stitches, and close the ring. And then, how do you measure this space in between the 2 rings? It's by guesstimation. And from the base of this ring over to the picot is half the distance. You can see that in your hand. Double it, and then begin your second ring at that point where you've doubled the space from here. And you'll have a fairly close spacing. Doing it several times and you'll be just fine on that. Then let's look at the medallion, because you're going to do the same thing as you have before, reading from left to right. And your starting threads here, and your ring resumes in just the same way you've done the other rings, starting here, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, picot, and the same, 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, close the ring, reverse the work, and then you are going to work in this direction because you're going left to right. Chain, 3 double stitches, picot, and on in this direction. The second ring, then after you finish your chain unit and you've reversed your work, the second ring is 3 double stitches, picot, 3 double stitches, join, 3 double stitches, picot, and on through the ring. Close the ring, reverse the work, and go on. The first ring is always with all of the picots, and then when you go all the way around from left to right, you'll see the second and the next one following joining the one just before. When you go all the way around and reach the last ring, you'll see here that there's a picot and then a join, the double stitch group, the picot and then the join to the first ring. So the last ring then has the double joining. The first ring has no joining. And then you finish your last chain and your threads exit in that manner. You've been going left to right, but in a circle. I think with that, you'll be perfectly fine in going ahead and reading the rest of the patterns. You may prefer writing the directions in abbreviations or in words or using the diagram, whichever is easier for you. Then, when you've gone through those patterns, you're ready to try a more intricate, a little more complicated pattern, and I have done this last one on the collar that I'm wearing. It has one little difference in the instruction because it's one color, and you wouldn't want to make it in really heavy thread most probably. So in one color of thread, you're going to fill your shuttle from the ball as you normally would, but then do not cut it. Leave it attached to the ball, and you can see it's attached here. Because it's a pattern that calls for the size increase all along in a regular manner, your picots have to be regular. And you'll want to measure them. As you've been doing them before, I've tried to show you guessing at them and rather eyeballing them. Practice makes that more perfect. But here, when you're ready for your first ring and you just start in the thread in between, make your first 6 stitches, and then when you're ready for the picot, make the first half of your picot, and then I measure it over what is the right size of a piece of plastic, and I'm standing it inside my ball so it stands up there waiting for me to slip the thread over that and then grasp it within that pinch. For the picot, do the second half of the stitch, transfer the stitch, position it, and then I can slide the picot off, and it is that precise size, and all the rest of them will be that same size as you go along. You'll be happy with having them uniform in a project of this nature. I was so intrigued by a picture of a doily that I saw in a book I was reading that I had to adapt that pattern to make this collar. I used DMC 30 coordinate for the whole thing, and I thought it turned out so beautifully. I hope you enjoy making all of the projects that are shown here in the pattern folder, so that then you'll be ready to go ahead and do the more complex stitches using the more complex patterns and using perhaps linen and silk in the projects in the Tatting II. I hope to see you there.